24 years ago, I became a caregiver for the first time. However, I didn't even know that word existed. As a 13-year-old teen, I watched my mom battle breast cancer at the young age of 38. I remember sitting on her hospital bed after her mastectomy and reconstructive surgery. My parents prepared me well, though, because I don't remember being scared of the C word. I do vividly remember helping my mom shave, though. Yes, I had to shave my mom's armpits. What 13-year-old gets to boast about that? One of the many joys of caregiving that I would soon learn. Flash forward approximately 10 years. I was put into the role of caregiver once again as a brand new 5th, 6th grade teacher. My dear sweet Kiana had been battling a brain tumor for nearly 4 years. I struggled to help her succeed in the classroom because she was exhausted from treatments. She would fall asleep, and she fought to keep up with the academic rigor of a healthy 5th grade student. I spent hours in meetings with her family to discuss how to best help Miss Kiana succeed while she continued to receive her treatments. Sadly, I do remember driving to Children's Hospital in Oakland to visit my dear Angel one last time. Today, I am reminded of her smile and hugs each day, though, as I drive by her family's store, Kiana's Pharmacy, in my hometown. 5 years later, I was back in the hospital again. This time, it was because my Uncle Bobby was diagnosed with esophageal cancer that summer while he and my aunt were on a cruise halfway around the world. Listening to him to say, "Hi, Teener," or "I'm proud of the mom that you're about to become," brought tears to my eyes as I hugged my aunt and my cousins because there was nothing else they could do. Less than a year from his diagnosis, he was taken from us. It breaks my heart that he was never able to meet my 2 girls, nor was he even able to meet his own grandchildren. Today, as a family, we walk in his memory at my relay, and our team name honors his fight each year. We are Remember Our 3, because we will forever remember Robert Ray Redding. Now, you'd think that I'd had my share of caregiving duties over the years, but it's not quite the case because another 5 years passed, and my caregiving duties were called upon once again. I recall sitting on the couch talking to my mom about my day, and then the next thing I know, she was telling me my dad had colon cancer. What? How could that be? Tears welled in my eyes as I couldn't believe that my dad, the toughest man I know, was now in his most vulnerable state ever. The next week, my mom and I sat in the waiting room for what felt like an eternity as surgeons removed a foot of his colon. Visits to the hospital, trips to the store for slippers. Yes, he actually wore slippers for the first time. Prepping for further colonoscopies, becoming polyp man at relay. He made it through it all. My dad walks tall and strong today. Cancer came knocking at my family's door yet again 2 years later. This time, my father-in-law was diagnosed with CML. At first, when I heard CML, I was at a loss to what it meant. I immediately called the 1-800 number, and the person on the phone spoke to me with kindness and compassion. After that call, I felt armed with the facts and details about his cancer. I learned that Gleevec treats his cancer, and I am so happy to report that he is in remission today due to the life-saving efforts of volunteers like you. I carry with me a great deal of pride in our organization, the American Cancer Society, because 12 years ago, when I became a volunteer, Gleevec was just a dream. Now, it is the drug that saved my father-in-law's life. It's crazy to me that I've seen so many battle this disease because I've been there on the front lines with them. It's a terrifying position to be in, no matter who was battling, whether it was my mom, my student, my uncle, my dad, my father-in-law. Those feelings and fears are all the same. My caregiving status is one of my greatest legacies as an American Cancer Society volunteer. I am seen by my family and my friends, co-workers, as that rock to grab onto, the one to give direction, to find the answers to the questions that they're so desperate to find. We are all in this battle together, and I know we work tirelessly to defeat this disease. We will not give up.
In the fall of '97, I was a first grader in Richmond, Virginia. A couple of months into the school year, my class got a new student, Ryan McGee. One day, Ryan walked into the classroom wearing a baseball hat. Oh my gosh, I thought to myself, he's gonna get in trouble. So, wanting to avoid rule breaking, I snuck over to our cubbies and half whispered to him, "You can't wear hats inside." Frustrated, he removed his hat, showing he had gone completely bald. A few days later, I was returning from a bike ride with my dad, and I saw Ryan playing in the front yard of a house on my street. We had been neighbors for a few weeks now without realizing it. So I got home, and I called him up to play, and we quickly made up for that lost time. I knew he had leukemia, but I didn't know what that meant or why it would make someone go bald. We just played like normal kids. Ryan's mom was always surprised to see us hang out so often, because he wasn't really the type to go to other people's houses. But we'd play Nintendo 64, the board game Clue, we wrote stories, we built leprechaun traps, and we put on the worst magic shows you could possibly imagine. But they were always entertaining. And we counted how many people we could get to wave at us from the backwards-facing seats of my mom's station wagon. I accompanied Ryan to a few of his chemotherapy visits and was just shocked by the things he had come to live with, the cracks and holes in his body that were just part of his everyday life. Ryan beat his leukemia in 1999, and I realized that my role for him as caregiver had always been to help him keep as normal of life as possible. Because nothing changed in our friendship, we still did all the same things, the ridiculous magic shows, minus the chemotherapy trips. About a year after that, Ryan's family moved to North Carolina, and mine moved to California. Life never became easy for Ryan, from developing diabetes to his classmates' endless taunting. But he never let their fat-ass Ryan nickname or cruel actions get in the way of his kindness and compassion. In December of 2003, Ryan learned he had a malignant brain tumor from all the years of chemotherapy. It was hard not being there for him in person like I had been before. So instead, I called him on the phone, we wrote letters, and I held up signs like, "Hang in there, dude," and sent them to him. I even sent him an honorary black belt from my martial arts studio to recognize him for his courage, bravery, and unbreakably positive attitude. And long story, we sent each other cereal boxes in the mail. In July, when he barely had motor control over his body, and he was going blind, he dictated a letter to his mom that was sent out to his few close friends, thanking us for our time together, all the good times we had had, but telling us that life was just too physically hard to go on, and he knew it was his time to go. But he looked forward to the day when we'd be friends, just like before. I reread that letter several times on August 4th, 2004, the day Ryan passed away from his brain tumor. Every year since then, I've gone to visit Ryan's family and follow them across the globe as they moved from North Carolina to California, to North Carolina, to London, and now back to North Carolina again. So every year, Ryan's mom, dad, and brother Jordan and I, and sometimes some of his other close friends in North Carolina, celebrate August 4th by playing Ryan's favorite games, eating good food, and having a balloon launch in his honor. We catch up regularly throughout the year as well. I've taken over Ryan's job of making the birthday poster for his brother Jordan, a job I've agreed to continue doing until he gets married or turns 30, whichever comes first. And Ryan's mom flew out to California to see my high school graduation, and we'll be meeting up again in a couple months to run a half marathon together in Texas. This summer, we spent our last day together setting up Ryan's room in their new home. We came across the old letters we had sent each other, some of the cereal boxes, the old pictures we had taken. We even came across some oversized get well cards from Brian's classmates in the months before he had died, most asking for forgiveness for how they had treated him. I thought about my lifelong connection to Ryan and his family that day. I couldn't always be there in person to hug him when he got bad news, or to sit with him when he was physically ill and having seizures, living out his final days on his couch. But I could always send him a letter, have a fun conversation, and just talk about normal kid stuff while still having that deep level of understanding between us. First grade Perry wouldn't have expected to become friends with his buddy Ryan's parents and 4-year-old brother. But now, I couldn't imagine my life any other way. I mean, isn't that what anyone else would have done?
I was 3 when my dad was diagnosed with kidney cancer at age 46. This early? Sorry. They opened him up, had no treatment options, and he died in the hospital, leaving my mom with 5 kids under the age of 12. When I was 30, my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Again, no treatment options. She didn't want to end up in the hospital like my dad with tubes and everything, or like her mom with ovarian cancer, a horrible experience she didn't want to repeat. I took a leave of absence to help care for her back in Boston, in my older sister Ann's home. It was a brief battle, and she died 2 months after diagnosis. So now we're a family of 5 siblings. I'm the baby, and Ann's the eldest, and she's now the leader of the pack. So instead of my weekly long-distance phone calls to my mom, I'd call Ann. My kids love spending time with their wild, wonderful auntie every summer back east. Now, don't tell my other sister or my 2 brothers, but Auntie Ann was the cool one. What happened at Auntie Ann's every summer stayed at Auntie Ann's. So because of my family's cancer history, one of my doctors suggested that all 5 of us get scanned just to be safe. We were stunned to learn that Ann had kidney cancer. Absolutely no symptoms, age 46, same as our dad. So over the next 12 years, I traveled back to Boston from San Jose whenever I could to help her with surgeries and treatments as the cancer spread to her other kidney, to her lungs, her pancreas, and finally to her jawbone. And she actually ended up with a titanium jaw, which just increased her coolness factor with my kids. And throughout it all, with her incredibly positive attitude, Ann kept thinking how lucky she was that the tumor had been found to begin with, and how lucky she was that there were always new treatments for her to try, many of those funded by the society. Then one spring, I found Relay. It was something my family and I could do out in San Jose while Ann was battling back in Boston. We were fighting back long distance. So that summer, back in Cape Cod, 5 families back together again, and I could not stop talking about Relay. Ann was thrilled with my newfound passion, or obsession as my family calls it, and she was honored by my involvement on her behalf. So we're all having a great time at the beach, and out of the blue, she had a seizure from brain tumors. So over the next few weeks, my sister Ellen and I stayed with Ann in her hospital room 24/7. Ann tried whole brain radiation, but could feel her mind slipping, which was her greatest fear, and she decided it was time to go home. No more treatments. Yet somehow, my big sister Ann remembered about a Relay leadership conference I was supposed to attend in LA later that week. Of course, I wanted to stay in Boston to help her, but my big sister Ann was still watching out for me. I think she sensed how important Relay was going to be in my healing process and insisted I go. She said she'd be there when I got back, so off to LA I went, soaking up an unbelievable amount of knowledge for this wonderful new thing called Relay. I flew back from the conference to Boston on a red-eye, landing Sunday morning. Ann and I spent the day together, and she passed away early Monday morning at home. She had waited for me to be sure I'd be okay. So I wrote and delivered her eulogy about how lucky she thought she was, which was something I never could have managed without what I had just learned at that conference, something I never would have experienced without Relay, or without that little gentle shove from my big sister Ann. So I am so lucky to have been her caregiver, and I am so lucky that she is my reason to Relay.
I am Tina Brown, and I am a caregiver.
I'm Perry Reed, and I'm a caregiver.
I'm Mary Keenan, and I'm a caregiver.